Hello guys, let's talk about Scratch. What is Scratch? Maybe you're scratching your head on what I'm talking about. Well, you're in luck because this is a programming environment for people who want to begin learning how to program. This Scratch will teach the fundamentals and the basics of what you need to know on programming. It's very fun and very easy to learn. What is programming? Well, what is programming? Programming is where you can write codes and programs that the computer knows how to read. And you can tell the computer to read your program in a certain way to make it do what you're wanting it to do. You can make a light on a motherboard blink or just turn on. Maybe you made a flashlight and you want it to program it for different clicks. Maybe the first time you click a button, it stays on. Maybe the second time it turns into a strobe light. Many different options. There are also very many different programming languages to learn, but we're going over Scratch, which will teach the fundamentals and basics that you need to know before you get into these different coding languages. Now, there are a list here of different coding languages that you can learn. Once you understand the fundamentals and programming, you can then branch off on how to program in these somewhat like these: Python, C#, C++, JavaScript, Ruby, and SQL. Python and Ruby and JavaScript are going to be a little more complicated than SQL, C++, and C#, but they are fun to learn. So if you're wanting to download Scratch or use the Scratch website to program your coding, it will be www.scratch.mit.edu. This is not a sponsored video by Scratch as well. That's just a link to Scratch. Let's talk about event blocks. So Scratch is a drag and drop programming environment. So using event blocks will help you start the program, start different parts of the program, stop parts of your program, or stop the entire program itself. You can do many things, from just starting the program to telling an object to, when it completes its task, to send a message over to another object, and then this object will start its program and do what it was told to do. So that's basically the behind the scenes of event blocks. Now, sending out a message. You would use the broadcast block in Scratch, which I will show you how to do that in the next video. We will go over all this. It will be divided into a few different videos to make it a little less complicated and not as overwhelming. So yeah, you would use the broadcast, and then you would create your message. And what this block does is it tells what the object that you are using to send this message. And once the object that message is sent to, well, I take that back. When you broadcast a message, all of the objects within your program, which are called sprites in Scratch's case, they all receive it. But it's whether or not which object you tell to act upon that message that has been broadcast to the sprites. So once this object receives it, if you have it coded properly, then it will do what you tell it to do when it receives the message. So another thing to remember when you're sending it out and you do want them to receive it, you use the when I receive block, which means when that object receives it, because all the sprites receive this message, so you want to use this block to tell it when it receives this message, underneath this block is what you're going to have it, what you want it to do. Alright? Pretty simple. Controls. We all know that if you're building a game, you're going to want to be able to control it. You don't want a haywire game that you can't control. If you have an Xbox and it doesn't work because you can't use the controller, there's no point in having the Xbox. It's just the same thing. So somebody has to code the controls to make it, which would be you. So controls can be used to loop things constantly, or they can repeat things. They can even stop parts of your program, because you are controlling what you allow the user that is running this program. It limits what they can do. You have to put a limit. You have to build that limit. If it's an open limit, anything, then the program's not going to work. Motion. Maybe you want a 2D object moving across the screen simply. Well, you would use the motion blocks. When you're making something move, you would use the move blank steps, and you can change the variable, the number, in the little white oval to change how far the distance you want it to go. Or you can use the change Y by blank, or change X by blank. That block is not listed, but it is there, because it's mapped in a XY axis coordinate plane. So that's how you would make it move. Maybe you want to tell an object, hey, when this block touches me, disappear, go away. I don't want to see you again. You'd use, under the looks category, you would use the hide block. That would be hiding, just simply hiding the object that you code to hide. If you want the object to reshow, or if the program starts and it's not there, but later you need this object to appear on screen, you would use the show block. If you want your program to make sound, maybe you have background music. That's cool. Maybe a character in your video game that you're coding is talking. You would use blocks underneath the sound category to add music, sounds. Maybe a cat is meowing, dog barking, sound. What do you expect to be in a video game that you're playing? Music, sound effects, people talking maybe, alien communications? Not really. Depends if you're playing that kind of game or not. Sensing. This may be a little confusing because you may be thinking, how does a program sense things? Well, what you do using blocks underneath the sensing would be, if this happens, then do this. Or repeat. If this happens, then repeat this over and over, using a loop block under if then else. You can also use some sensing blocks in operator blocks, such as, if this object does this, then change the color of it, or change the background. operators, just like we just mentioned. See, it says some sensing blocks are used with if then else, or repeat. So you would use sensing, you would overlay them, I guess you could say, in the drag and drop portion of Scratch to tell it that this is what you want it to do if this happens, or do this when this happens. So this is just a few things on how to program Scratch, the basics that we will be going over.